let's face it, your Nuggets would love to make a trade. I mean, I've been hearing
Yeah.
that now for over a week. I mean, that they, not just that they're looking, but they're eager to try to do something to shake things up. But again, the Nuggets just have a very limited, a limited supply of tradable assets at this point. So I don't
I don't
know.
know if that's true. I mean, here's the thing I'll say. It's true when you talk about they want to keep the players that are in the rotation, but I look at it, Julian Strawther, I look at a Peyton Watson, I look at a Christian Brown, and I say those guys are all good. If a team is not in a win now spot, it would make sense to trade for one of those guys. All right, now we welcome in MArc Stein of DLLS and the MArc Stein Substack. All right, Mark, things are starting to heat up. We're almost at December 15th. Trade season is getting underway, or at least opening up. We're going to talk about that here in a second, but it's also NBA Cup season. And I'm very curious your take. I feel like these Cup games have been phenomenal, but they also have been a little bit weird and the schedule is all off. So I'm curious, are you a fan of the NBA Cup, and have you been a fan of it this year and the product that it has been?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess we've never gotten into this. I am an absolute soccer snob
That's
who
right.
spends a lot of time going to cup games abroad. So I want to love the NBA Cup. I want the NBA Cup to work. And this week illustrated the good aspects of it, which is knockout play. We don't have knockout play in the NBA. We don't have one game, winner take all, winner advances situations. We're used to long, drawn out playoff series. And I think that's why this week was so compelling. And it's what we should be emphasizing more in the NBA Cup. What really bothers me about the format that the NBA has adopted is that the group stages are just 60 regular season games that count twice. They are not tournament games. They have tournament packaging. They have courts that are different and are supposed to trick us into thinking it, but they are just regular season games that count twice with a point differential system that you need to go to MIT to properly understand. and my feeling is, and what I think this week, we saw a very beat up Orlando team almost beat Milwaukee. We saw the Hawks go into the Garden,
Love it,
stun the Knicks. We saw the chaotic Houston Golden State ending. The only bad game was the game I was with legs. I thought Dallas OKC was going to be an absolute classic, and that game was not. But it's just so different from normal NBA life, and that's what the NBA Cup should be. And my problems again with it's 60 regular season games that double as tournament games in the group stages. It's hard to keep up with how the group stage even works, even in year 2. There are no teams introduced from any other league, so it's the same 30 teams that we already see. The East and the West do not get mixed up, just like the playoffs. West and East they don't face each other until a championship. So what I would like to see, that's my long-winded way of saying, I think we should try. And look, I understand it's not that easy to just tell Real Madrid and Barcelona to come over here and play in the NBA Cup. It's a lot easier.
I love this idea. I love it.
It's a lot easier said than done. But let's just take the whole league to Vegas and play out the tournament over 7 knockouts, all knockout. The format I'd like to see is the 2 teams that made the finals get a bye. The other 28 teams go in a hat, pick it out of a hat, knockout, 32-team draw, and let's just play it out over the course of a week, because I do think fans would really like that. It would be if the Cavs were unbeaten when the NBA Cup started. What if their first loss came in a cup game? It's got to be different for people to embrace it. And like I said, another thing, they play the LL Cool J, Mama Said Knock You Out, and we're only now getting knockout games. We've been hearing the song for weeks. It's only this week that we had knockout games.
it is also almost trade season. This weekend will mark sort of the beginning of the unofficial beginning of trade season with December 15th. Teams are allowed to sign players who sign guys in the offseason they can be traded. Real quick though, there's big changes to the CBA. We've seen some teams make calculations on how they think this is all going to unfold. But one of the questions I wonder is, do these new restrictions make it less likely that we're going to see trades in the season? As you talk to people and as you ramp up for trade season, do you expect it to be more quiet than typical because of that?
I don't. And look, there is no question that you've heard rumbles from teams saying they have explored theoretical scenarios already. And a lot of those like, man, the rules don't let us do that. But
Right.
I still think there is a fair amount of chatter already. As you said, Sunday is when trade season starts, and the chatter has already been pretty robust this week, I would say. And, you know, my friend Keith Smith, who just a absolute fantastic salary cap expert, does great writing on Spot Track. You see him on NBA Twitter.
He's everywhere,
He's
man. He's great.
really, really, really on top of salary cap matters. And Keith had a great stat in one of his pieces this week that over the last 6 years, we've seen 7 trades between December 15th and January 15th. So 7 early trades in the last 6 years. And it was almost 8 because Pascal Siakam actually got traded to Indiana on January 17th last year. So just narrowly
That
missed that.
counts.
So I would say teams have been more active early in recent years than they were in the past. Now again, there will be some trades that the aprons scuttle, no question, but there are a lot of players who are already available and productive veterans all over the league who teams believe can be had. So I think we're going to see action. Now, if you judge a trade deadline only by an all-star or a franchise player moving, then chances are, yeah, you're probably going to be disappointed because, Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram, Zach Lavine, there's a fair amount of dialogue about all 3 of them, but a trade involving any of those 3 in season is going to be very hard to pull off. But, they're all theoretically in play, so the possibility exists. But I got to be honest, man, in today's end, I don't think there is such a thing as a small trade anymore. I mean, every trade in the NBA generates opinion, reaction, excitement, and hoopla.
Well, there's a lot of teams that make sense to me to want a trade to happen. Like the Knicks right now to me look like they're a trade away. The Bucks probably could use some depth. I don't know that they should feel too good about where their roster is. You go to the other side and Memphis
Bucks,
could use Tim's,
Bucks love to the Bucks would love to make a trade. Their issue is they just have very little to work
sure.
with in terms of trades. They've had Marshawn Beauchamp available for a while, but that's not really
I
going to
mean,
bring you
come
back
on.
a
Yeah.
ton. They like to improve on the perimeter for sure. And let's face it, your Nuggets would love to make a trade. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
hearing that now for over a week. I mean, that they not just that they're looking, but they're eager to try to do something to shake things up. But again, the Nuggets just have a very limited, a limited supply of tradable assets at this point. So I don't
I don't
know.
know if that's true. I mean, here's the thing I'll say. It's true when you talk about they want to keep the players that are in the rotation, but I look at it, Julian Strother, I look at a Peyton Watson, I look at a Christian Brown, and I say those guys are all good. If a team is not in a win now spot, it would make sense to trade for one of those guys. The sense Denver gives is they don't want to trade those guys. They want to trade the other guys that are at the end of the rotation. So I always wonder, because you're right. I look at Denver's roster and I go, you know what? They're not that far away from contention, in my opinion. They still have Jokic. They can get there, but it probably cost them losing one of those core pieces. And if they did that, I think there's teams that should be interested in Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strother.
Yeah, the chatter about the Nuggets at this point has been, Zeke Naji, can they do something there? And again, it's a $9 million contract. It does descend over the next few
Yeah.
years, but it also is not. It's not expiring next week. I mean, it's got a few
Right.
more years to run on that deal. So, and then it becomes a question: do they look at something bigger? I mean, how will you feel if they start exploring Michael Porter and
Sure.
his potential, what he could attract on the trade market? I don't know if they're ready to go to that extent. But, it's like I said, the G League showcase is next week in Orlando. It is not baseball's winter meetings exactly, because the teams are there to scout the G League prospects who are there. But it's the closest thing we have to the winter meetings. Everybody's there. And December 15th is Sunday. The showcase is December 19th. Trust me, the chatter is going to pick up. This will not be the last time we are talking trades on the All NBA show. I promise you.
That's so interesting because, it's like you said, it's not that they're having formal conversations, but when everybody's together, there's a little bit of, hey, what do you think of Michael Porter? What do you think? The big question I got to ask you, though, is Jimmy Butler. He's obviously in the news. They get the win tonight, by the way, the Miami Heat do over the Toronto Raptors, or last night, I should say, tonight when we're recording this. But his name is out there, and he's connected to 4 teams. He's connected to Houston, Dallas, the Golden State, and Phoenix. And then with the caveat of, a contending team, he is of $48 million, able to be expiring. He is a guy that obviously comes with both really good highs and some big-time lows. So I look at Jimmy Butler as the perfect trade rumor person because he's good enough to be excited about and comes with enough risk that if you're trading for him, it could totally ruin your entire season. So how real are these Jimmy Butler trade talks, and what is the sense you get of what Miami would prefer, to move on from him or to hold on to him?
Well, the other interesting thing is Jimmy doesn't do anything to douse the Flames. I mean, the Suns are mentioned as a potential destination, and he's dyeing some orange into his hair. So
Looked great, by the way. Looked great. I thought it looked really good on the court tonight.
He is also a showman, and knows how to get everybody whipped into a frenzy. I mean, look, Miami. I mean, on one hand, for the last 5 years, Jimmy Butler he's really been the Heat. You just hear over and over how he has embodied everything they want out of a franchise player. They've made 2 trips to the finals and were 1 shot away from a third in Jimmy Butler's first 5 seasons in Miami. Pretty damn impressive. And so they're in a tough situation because he's got only 1 year left on his deal. It's a player option, and all the noise has been that he's prepared to decline it and go into free agency, which just doesn't happen much anymore. Nobody wants to go into free agency. Everybody wants to do extensions, but Jimmy, all the noise again has been that he's willing excuse me. All the noise has been that he's willing to decline that player option for next season and go into free agency. So if that's the case, Miami has to listen. They have to explore their options. It's hard to imagine an in-season trade again because the number is so significant. And, the calculus that teams have to weigh is, okay, if we're trading for him, if he turns down that extension, if he bypasses the player option, we're trading for a free agent. Is this a rental? I mean, that's kind of a crazy situation. Now, of the teams that have been talked about, Houston and Dallas are natural fit or natural teams to be mentioned because not only are they contending teams, they're in Texas. Jimmy Butler's from Houston. But look, everything I've been told repeatedly about the Rockets since the season started is they do not want to make an in-season trade. And when the Rockets do take their next big swing, they want it to be someone who's closer on the age timeline to all these. They have like 7 recent first-round picks, all 23 and younger. So Jimmy Butler at 35, Kevin Durant at 36, they don't really want to go for a player in his mid-30s when they've got such a young group that player would be joining. And then Dallas, the Mavs already have 2 max players, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. Both are eligible for contracts this summer. The Mavs don't functionally have a way to go after Butler, even if they wanted to, and the Mavericks, frankly, have larger needs than another playmaker. Jimmy Butler brings a 2-way toughness and versatility that Dallas doesn't have, but he's a ball-dominant playmaker. They don't need that. They have other needs. But, Golden State does have a level of interest, and Golden State is in a mode where they do still want to take a big swing. They tried to trade for both Paul George and Lauri Markkanen in June and July. They couldn't pull that off. I do think we have to watch the Warriors to some degree. And Phoenix is interesting too. Now, Phoenix can't really do it unless Bradley Beal is the outgoing centerpiece. Miami didn't want to trade for Beal when he was leaving Washington, in part because Beal possesses a no-trade clause. There are only 2 full no-trade clauses in the league. Bradley Beal has one. LeBron James has the other. If Bradley Beal wasn't willing to waive it 2 years ago, is he willing to waive it now? And I can't imagine Miami would be more into Bradley Beal now than they were 2 years ago, given the way things have gone in Phoenix. So it's hard for me to see how Phoenix gets a Butler trade done without Bradley Beal. So, look, other teams may emerge, but, you know, again, there's going to be no shortage of chatter. I'm not promising you that there will be trades, but, you know, I've given you 3, you know, Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram, Zach Lavine. These are significant players.
Yeah.
And they will be discussed from now until March 6th. Now, whether a deal can actually happen, we'll have to wait and see.
When do you, real quickly here, because we got to get out, but real quickly, when do you think the first deal, the first transaction happens in the NBA? If you were just, I know it's a blind guess.
I don't feel like it's totally blind. I would expect at least one deal in that first month window. I don't think
at least one.
I don't think we're going to have to wait till January 15th. I think we will see at least one deal in that first month because I just have a feeling.
Okay, I like it. I hear you. There you go. He is Marc Stein. You can catch him over on the DLLS Mavs post-game shows, doing phenomenal work over there. And then, of course, the Substack, all the latest news, rumors, and reports. Marc, thanks for joining us.
Sounds good, my friend. We'll talk soon.